Hey folks, problem number 3. Hopefully you watched the previous example all the way to the very end. In that problem, I was showing you that if the null is P1 is equal to P2, then you could rewrite the null as P1 minus P2 is equal to 0. And if it's a two-tailed test, what's implied for the alternative is that the proportions are different. Okay, so at the very end of the last video, I talked about this idea. And the reason we do this is because you see how there's no number mentioned in this idea? But if I rewrite it like this, there is a number. So that's the number we're going to go hunting for in our confidence interval. So when we do problem number 3, they're talking about anxiety-reducing medication. Assume minimum requirements are met, of course. Construct a 95% confidence interval. Okay, so 95% confidence interval, we are just going to use the 2prop z int. So let's go here. Let's see, go on, clear, stat, test, 2prop z interval. 2prop z test, no, 2prop z int. Two proportions, z int, confidence interval. Okay. And let's see, they give us x1, so that's 225. Enter out of 500. Enter 165. Enter 400. Enter confidence. They say 95. 95. Enter calculate. And it gives me a confidence interval of negative 0.0275, comma 0.10253. From negative to positive. So we're wondering if this anxiety, so we create this confidence interval, and then the question that's sometimes not really stated explicitly, but kind of implied, it's, so I just look at this confidence interval, and if you're giving me two groups, and we're talking about the proportions in those two groups, so I'm wondering, does the medication and the placebo have different effects? So the null is the idea of no effect. No effect. Proportion 1 is basically the same as proportion 2. Their difference is nothing. Is 0 in this interval? Is 0 in this interval? Yes, 0 is in this interval. Okay, so this idea seems okay. We are stuck with this idea. We would fail to reject the HO. Okay, so that means there's not enough evidence. So if you fail to reject HO, then we would say there's not enough evidence to suggest the HA, that the proportions are different. So it's a little weird because no one asked you to make a null or alternative hypothesis. It's all just sort of implied. So if you're making a confidence interval with proportion, two proportions, think of it like this. Here's what's implied. The proportions are the same. The proportions are different. Okay, so this is all implied. And notice that the null hypothesis could be rewritten as P1 minus P2 is equal to 0. Okay, so once you make your confidence interval, you ask yourself, is 0 in the interval? Oh, it is in the interval. It goes from negative to positive, so 0 is somewhere in there. Okay, so this idea is somewhat reasonable. Let's not get rid of it. We're stuck with it. Let's fail to reject it. Okay, and then just go back to what we've done before in the past. If you fail to reject HO, that means there's not enough evidence to suggest the HA. There's not enough evidence to suggest that the proportions are different. Oh, okay. So basically, the question is, does this anxiety medicine have any effect? No. We fail to reject HO. we're basically saying it has no effect. Remember, the null is the idea of no effect. We fail to reject it. Oh, you mean we accept it? We don't accept anything. We're very careful with our words. We fail to reject it. So then the question is, well, is there a difference? Yes. Think of this example. Someone says, do you love me? And you say, I don't not love you. See how it's a very subtle difference? Do you love me? I don't not love you. Aha. Do we accept the HO? No, we fail to reject it. What? Okay, ponder that for a few. A little confusing. I know. Maybe reread 10.1 again if this is still bugging you. Oogly doogly.